everybody. My name is Kosti Sifri. I'm the hospital epidemiologist here at UVA Medical Center and UVA Health. We're talking today about COVID vaccination. As you may be aware, a COVID vaccine, actually 2 vaccines, have now come to clinical use to prevent COVID infection. So we're hosting this session today because we want to make sure everybody has access to the information that I can provide and our team members can provide. We are joined together by a couple clinicians, including Dr. Ebony Hilton and Dr. Mike Williams, who are from the departments of anesthesia and surgery, and we're amongst our first team members, our first employees here at UVA to receive the COVID vaccine. So welcome. I think the first thing that I'd like to do is, I don't see Ebony anymore, but if Ebony is still on and Mike is on, if we could have maybe Mike and Ebony talk about their first experience since they received the vaccine 1 week ago.
Yeah, so I had the fortune to be the very first vaccination at UVA on last Tuesday, so it's been a week. And literally, I've been doing these daily videotapes to show people if I had any symptoms, and I've had nothing. The most I had was just like you have with the flu shot, maybe a little tenderness of my arm if I pressed there, but really no fevers, no sickness, shortness of breath, no GI upset or anything. And I always want to say, I preface to say, I understand that there is fears. There's been a lot of information on social media about things to distrust, and we know that there's various reasons of why people can have hesitation. So that's why we wanted to be present, that you can ask someone who actually did take it. How did you experience it? What did you notice that happened with you? And there is literally no question that you can ask me that I wouldn't answer for you. So if you have any questions at all, feel free.
So Ebony, I'm about to be vaccinated. Can you tell me what it'll feel like when Charles gives me the vaccine?
Yeah. So actually, so previously when I've had other flu vaccines, I felt like it was a sting to it, but this one, I didn't even have a sting. And I know Tyson Bell, he said he felt a little bit of a sting with his, so maybe everyone's a little bit different. But I literally didn't have anything. My next shot should be on January the 5th. And according to the papers, and Dr. Cox, we'll talk about that. Some people do have more symptoms after the second shot as far as an immune reaction, because we know your body is supposed to have an immune reaction. But it's been, yeah. I've actually had, I feel like, two flu vaccines ago, I had a little bit of a fever and just felt kind of crappy for a day or two. But with this one, I haven't had anything.
I will say that I probably had it even easier than Ebony did. In fact, I didn't even feel the sting. I got my vaccine the day after hers, so last Wednesday, and was fortunate enough to be recorded live doing it on a online news outlet. And I literally had to watch the screen to see when it happened because I didn't really feel a thing. And the flu vaccine, which I've gotten religiously for the last many, many years, it has been worse every single time compared to this. So this is, without exception, the injection is a lot more liquid. In the flu vaccine, this is a pretty small amount of liquid. So I think somewhere between really having a sore arm tomorrow and my experience is what you're about to experience, Kosti. And I also have had absolutely no symptoms whatsoever. Have had no reason to take Tylenol or anything else to kind of make me feel better. I feel fine. In fact, I got vaccine on Wednesday and took call for 30 hours on Thursday.
So what is this vaccine? So there are 2 vaccines, and we're going to be receiving both. They're both based on what's called RNA. So it's essentially a gene that produces a protein. So what we're doing with this vaccine is providing the message, the blueprint to produce a protein that is important for this virus to cause infection. So we are not giving an entire virus, but rather just one part of the virus. It's the specific blueprint that instructs how to make this protein that's important for the virus to actually infect us, to get into our cells. So that is essentially the component of this vaccine is this messenger RNA. It is carried in a little bit of fat, and that's so that it's able to get into the cells to produce this protein. So those are really the two fundamental components of this vaccine. Since it's not a whole virus, it can't cause an infection. It is not going to cause COVID. It's not going to cause other infections. It's simply the components of fat and this blueprint RNA message. People sometimes get concerned because this is nucleic acid, and there's a concern that it can cause changes in our human genome, which is DNA. It does not get and does not interact with human DNA. It's in a different part of the cell. It doesn't go to the nucleus, which is the part of the cell where DNA is. So it can't cause, changes in your DNA, which can be a concern, I think, for people in general, and sometimes is a concern for particular people who, have a family concern because of genetic disease or around pregnancy or things like that. So given that, it is simply the protein, it's in essence the blueprint for this protein, and our body now will develop an immune response to that protein, and we understand because of this very, very strong immune response, after one receives this vaccine and completes this series, we are protected, highly protected against infection. It's 95% effective. Importantly, for the people that develop COVID after getting this vaccine, that small percent, that 5% that get vaccine, they are also protected from serious disease. So it's effective not only in preventing any infection. If you happen, unfortunately, to get infection, you're very protected from getting serious disease. So we really think that this is a game changer in terms of the way to combat this this pandemic that has devastated so many of our families, so much of our communities. In terms of side effects, which I'll get to experience perhaps, or maybe not, if my experience is anything like Dr. Hilton and Williams, they're for the most part going to be local pain and discomfort at the site of injection is what is widely reported, and then some people may feel some body aches or headaches and things like that. I can certainly let you know if I feel those, but as you've heard so far, our experience has been that most people have very little, if any, side effects with this vaccine. So I think with that, maybe should we do the vaccine, and then I can answer some questions? Great. All right, so we're going to let Charles take the lead on this, and I'm going to be quiet so he can walk us through the process and see what you can expect when you get the vaccine.
My name is Charles. I'm an ambulatory pharmacist with UVA, and I'm going to give Dr. Costi the COVID vaccine today. So first, I already washed my hands. That's what you do. We don't have the tap yet, so you didn't see that process. But my hands are clean, and then I put on the gloves to make sure that I'm protected, and also, it's the ideal thing to do for the patient. Now, what I'm going to do next is get the vaccine out. We usually keep the vaccine in an amber vial because we don't want to expose it to sunlight. So most of the time we keep it to prevent direct contact with sunlight. So this is my COVID vaccine, and it's here in the vial. Then the next step, that's my 1 mm vial that I'm going to use. I'm going to draw 0.3 ml. Unlike other vaccines where usually we do 0.5, for the COVID vaccine, we want to rehydrate it and make sure that everybody get it clear. It's 0.3 ml. So I'm going to open my syringe.
So how much is 0.3 ml? I mean, it's not very much, right?
Not very much.
It's a small drop.
Fraction of a teaspoon.
Right.
It looks like the size of a raindrop.
Yeah. So raindrop is I think that's a good analogy. Size of a raindrop.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see, but it's just a little bit, 0.3 ml. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I have my alcohol swab here. I'm going to go ahead and clean the COVID vaccine. That's normal practice, normal standard practice that we do to make sure that everything is clean. And then I can put this in the trash here. And then what I'm going to do.
Don't forget to do his arm too.
Sorry.
His arm too.
Oh, okay, we're not ready to that. Yeah. We don't need to put that in because it's already equilibrated when they take the mixing of the COVID dose. So all we got to do is we punch in straight 90 degrees. And then we invert it. And I'm going to draw 0.3. Make sure that there's no air bubble.
Looks good. 0.3.
0.3. Now I'll cap it first because I need to clean the injection site.
I'm just gonna work on relaxing my arm to let you know.
This way.
There you go.
And then
Position
just
me the right
relax
way.
as much as possible. So the next step, what I'm going to do is make sure that injection site is clean. So I just give it a good wipe with the alcohol swab. I put this in here. And
It is so muscular though. I think all those
No, just
muscles
relax.
this up.
And then I'm going to go straight in to the deltoid.
So I didn't even feel it. Again, I think this is similar to what Dr. Williams said. I wouldn't have known this was going on unless I was just watching the, the television screen here and I could see myself.
Okay, and it's not bleeding, but we usually put a band on just in case,
So literally, maybe when it first went in, I maybe I felt it, but I did not feel that at all, and I certainly don't feel it now. Again, if I am to have any, discomfort, any soreness, again, Dr. Williams said that you could have punched him in the arm, he wouldn't even have felt it. If there is anything like that, we'd anticipate only seeing that for a day or two after the vaccine. That's what people are reporting, just a couple days, when they do feel something. These vaccines, the vaccine series is actually a series of 2 shots, separated by 3 weeks or 4 weeks. There's 2 different vaccines that are available. And so that's just something to understand, is that when you get a vaccine, you'll be scheduled to be returning in a couple weeks, again, 3 to 4 weeks for that second shot. It's a booster. And what we find is that by giving 2 vaccines separated like that, that allows your immune system to learn from the first shot and then to develop a robust, very strong immune response to the second shot. Now, all that being said, even though these vaccines are very, very effective, as I said, 95% protection from COVID infection where you develop symptoms, we still, after you get the vaccine, have to understand that we'll need to continue to wear masks. We'll need to continue to do the same social distancing that we're all have become accustomed to, because it's part of, I think, our social contract with each other. We need to keep each other safe. And the second thing is that while it maybe protects against infection, we're not entirely sure right now, because it's new, how long that immunity will last, and if there's a potential that people could still shed virus. So do people have questions or comments? Anything that you want to ask?
Will UVA be making it mandatory for all employees to have the vaccine?
Yeah, so we have no plans to making it mandatory right now. It is a voluntary vaccine. What we want to do, though, is for those people who are wanting to see what the vaccine is like and what's occurring, we want to answer questions. So, between you and me, I want everybody to have vaccine, but, we don't think that it's appropriate at all to make it a requirement. So no plans to make it mandatory.
Yes, I'm just having concerns that that we came up with a vaccine so quickly.
Right,
And
right.
it hasn't been tested on a lot of different people that have different health conditions. And I just was wondering, like, if somebody had certain health conditions and they took the vaccine, what are some of the side effects?
And I would like Ebony and Mike to help me answer this
Yeah.
a little bit. I'll start by just saying that one thing that was very important in the clinical trials was to really try to make sure that they reflected the American community, both in terms of the clinical conditions that people may have that would place them at risk for COVID infection. So it's got a lot of people, many people in the clinical trials had pre-existing conditions like high blood pressure and diabetes and heart disease and emphysema. So they really worked hard to make sure that it was really reflective of the population that have challenges with COVID infection. Also age, they made sure that a lot of people were older in age, so 25% or so of the population that were studied with these two vaccines were over 65 years of age in the clinical trials. And they worked hard to try to make it look like America in terms of race and ethnicity. So about 10% in both the trials were African American, and about 25%, I think even a little bit higher, were Hispanic. And what we've seen through the clinical trials is that in terms of how effective the vaccine is in protecting people, that it's highly effective no matter what your age is, no matter what medical conditions you have, no matter what your race or ethnicity is. So they did work hard to do that, but it is, we acknowledge, just to be clear and open, that it is a new vaccine, and we are still going to be collecting more information to see other important things like how long does protection last and what that looks like 6 months from now. So Mike and Ebony, do you guys want to talk about that?
Yeah, I was gonna. It's so a couple different things. For one, the idea of an mRNA vaccine, it sounds like it was really quick, but if we actually look at the development of mRNA vaccines, they've been in the works for years to decades. And maybe Dr. Kosher, you can talk about that when they were first looking at with the SARS-CoV-1. So we know right now COVID-19 is also known as SARS-CoV-2. Well, that means there was a SARS-CoV-1, and that SARS-CoV-1 happened back in 2003, primarily over on the Asian continent, and we had a few though within the United States. But they started to look and see, if we have another virus that looks like that, how can we make sure that it doesn't spread as rapidly? How can we make development? So this mRNA vaccine has been in the works and in development since that time. Usually with drug companies, they have to put their own money and their own investment into saying, let's make this drug. And so what they first want to do is say, well, let's make sure it works completely fine first before we put hundreds of millions of dollars into development of these drugs on a large scale. And since it was happening so fast, and since there were already research that was already happening, those two things happened at the same time, of where they said, we're doing our clinical trials. For the Pfizer trial, it was 44,000 people that was in that trial. I think for Moderna trial, there was an additional 44,000 or somewhere close to that just in America. We're not even talking about all the other countries of the world. So at least in the United States of America, over 100,000 people have already been vaccinated with this same vaccine that we're talking about. And so at the same time that they were doing those trials, because the government said, here's some money for you to start making these drugs on a large scale, because if they show that they work, we're going to use them on day one after they're showing that they are working. The company, because they didn't have that risk of saying, if it didn't show that it worked, they wouldn't be out of money. The government already gave them their $100 billion. So if it didn't work, we can throw it away and start over.
Well, I'll just add, we're at, I don't know, 3,000 plus deaths a day. It's deaths a day. Forget the number of cases a day. And we're well over 3,000 cases a day, I think, in the Commonwealth. So the risk benefit plays out unquestionably in my mind, which is why I was, on day two, I was right there behind Ebony and Tyson Bell to get my shot. because we know that COVID has killed 320,000 Americans. It's probably more like 500,000 because the first 110 or so million we didn't recognize, or 110,000 we didn't recognize as because of COVID per se. So it's probably 500,000 Americans who are dead of this infection. And this vaccine can keep that number drop it to next to zero. And because of all the other history that goes into making Black and brown folks more vulnerable to this disease, when I heard those words, this will only most severely impact the most vulnerable. To me, that was code for people who look like me, people who have my cultural ancestry. And unfortunately, that's been borne out by the numbers as we've seen. So the concerns are legitimate, but I would comfortably state to you, my reputation, both as a physician and as a human being, that there is no experimentation going on currently. When Kosti says we're going to gather data, we're just going to follow what happens to those of us who have gotten the vaccine, not just here, but across the country and across the globe, to make sure that the immunity that we now enjoy. I think Ebony is probably, if you look at the numbers, is probably 80% immune now based on the numbers. And, the second one will get her to 95% and me as well. But a week out or so, she's 85% protected from this thing, which is 100% more than that was true 8 days ago. I cannot emphasize how important it is to me personally that we get y'all protected as quickly as possible from this vaccine. And short of, and I'll say this again, continuing to wear your mask, and nobody needs to have no big Christmas dinners, right? Thanksgiving is coming home to roost already, so that's just got to be off the menu. But short of those things that we've all been talking about and do for the last almost year now, this vaccine is the thing that gets us closest to being able to have Christmas dinners together next year and Thanksgiving dinners and go to weddings safely and all those things.
Melissa, do you have some?
Yeah, there's a couple of questions come through. One, will this be a yearly vaccine?
That's a great question and something that we don't know yet. As I talked about before, we don't know how long immunity lasts. I haven't heard about huge waves of new infection in China. So I think there's a possibility that we'll need to be revaccinated for COVID if you take a look at sort of natural immunity to this family of viruses. But I'm not certain if it'll be yearly or if it may be something less common. Only time will tell.
Another question, do I need to keep track of what brand of vaccine I'm getting?
That's a very good question. So the first part of that is, can you get one vaccine type and then a second vaccine of a different type? And right now, the recommendation is that you stick with the same vaccine, one dose to another. And so we're actually logging that information into the vaccine administration systems. You will actually get a card that says, and I'm waiting for mine, we'll get mine in a second, but it'll say what vaccine I got and the date and everything on a card that I can carry with me or I can put into my immunization book at home. And then when I come back, I can give it, I can show it to Charles to remind him of what vaccine he gave me. Now, again, this is all captured in our electronic system as well, so we will know what vaccine you got the first time and make sure you get the same vaccine type the second time.
Okay, what happens if someone only takes one shot?
So right now, I think actually Dr. Williams answered this a little bit. So there appears to be that first dose does provide you some immunity, and it actually looks like it provides you some immunity pretty quickly, 10 days or so, week and a half, 2 weeks after that first dose, which is great news. So even just starting the series has the chance to protect you. The open question is how long does it last after one dose versus getting two doses? And just like I told you, we don't quite have the answer for 2 doses, so we really don't have the answer for 1 dose yet.
If an employee chooses not to get the vaccine now, will one be made available later, or have I missed out on getting the vaccine at all?
We're not going to shut any doors. So if you need some time to think about vaccine, if you want to talk to people that are really important to you, that your doctor, your family members, a clergyman, Dr. Williams, and you provide you his number. If you need to have a conversation and it takes a little bit of time to come to a decision about vaccine, we are open to that. We're never going to close doors. I can't guarantee like when we'll be getting more vaccine or the distribution, because this is something that's controlled at a national level. But everything that we've heard is that we can anticipate as we go month by month, there will be more and more vaccine available. So if you decide to take some time to come to that decision, I'll give you my personal commitment that we are going to be there to get you vaccine.
As a doctor, are you concerned that years from now you will suffer side effects?
No, I am not. I'm not concerned years from now that I'll have side effects. I'm truthfully more concerned that if I have COVID infection, I'm not only concerned personally about about mortality. There is some possibility that if I were to have COVID infection that I could die. But there's also, and I see this as a doctor, I see the people that have had COVID infection and have long-term consequences after COVID infection. That they feel poorly, they have brain fog, and they have these other, symptoms after COVID infection. All right. Thank you very much. I want to thank everybody. I want to specifically thank Charles so much, since he did such a good job in giving me the vaccine. To Dr. Williams and Dr. Hilton for all of their insight and for blazing a trail for me in a week, so I know what to expect for this next week. Again, ask your questions, get them answered. We're here, and I was just half joking, but it really wasn't joking. Dr. Hilton, Dr. Williams, myself, reach out to us if you have questions about vaccine, and we're here to answer them. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Stay safe.
For more
Thank
information
you.
and answers to other common
Happy
questions,
holidays.
please see the information sheet in the front office or contact your doctor.